Did you know that not every creature made it onto Noah's Ark? Most people are familiar with the story of the Great Flood, where Noah saved his family and pairs of all living creatures from a cataclysmic disaster. However, there was one mysterious group that was deliberately left behind to face destruction. These beings were considered so dangerous that God himself made sure they didn't survive the flood. Who were these creatures and why were they excluded? Today we're diving deep into the untold story of Noah's Ark and the dark secret behind the Nephilim, beings so corrupt that their legacy continues to provoke questions and theories even to this day. The Nephilim are shrouded in mystery and intrigue, with mentions of their existence found in Genesis 6:1-4. Their origin is one of the most perplexing passages in the Bible. The text tells us that the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. From these unions were born the Nephilim, a race of giants. But who exactly were the sons of God? Most biblical scholars agree that the term sons of God refers to a group of rebellious angels who defied God's will. They descended to earth and took human women as their wives, resulting in offspring that were neither fully human nor fully angelic. These hybrid beings were extraordinary in their physical prowess and stature, but were also immensely corrupt and violent. The name Nephilim itself has been interpreted in several ways. Some translations refer to them as giants, while others define them as fallen ones, tying them directly to the fallen angels. Regardless of their exact physical form, the Nephilim were known to be beings of immense size and strength, but also immense wickedness. They played a significant role in humanity's moral decay during the time of Noah, and their presence was so detrimental that God took extreme measures to ensure their destruction. The Bible doesn't provide an extensive account of the Nephilim's day-to-day actions, but their very presence is linked to the rapid moral decline of humanity before the flood. Genesis 6:5 tells us, "The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time." This passage suggests that the influence of the Nephilim accelerated mankind's descent into violence, corruption, and immorality. Their giant stature and superior physical abilities gave the Nephilim an almost godlike status among humans. As a result, they wielded significant power and influence, often using it to dominate, oppress, and spread chaos. Ancient extra-biblical texts such as the Book of Enoch provide further details on the Nephilim, describing them as tyrants who taught humanity forbidden knowledge, including the arts of war and sorcery. Their actions led to a world so filled with violence that it became unrecognizable from God's original creation. The rapid spread of evil across the earth can be traced back to the Nephilim and their angelic fathers. The rebellion of these angels was more than just disobedience. It was a direct challenge to God's divine order. By violating the boundaries between the spiritual and physical realms, they introduced a corruption so profound that it could only be stopped by divine intervention. In the midst of all this corruption, there was one man who stood out: Noah. Genesis 6:9 describes Noah as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and that he walked faithfully with God. What made Noah so special? While others gave in to the temptations and influence of the Nephilim and their angelic fathers, Noah remained faithful to God's teachings. Noah's righteousness wasn't just about personal morality, it extended to his entire family. God chose Noah and his family to be the foundation of a new world, free from the corruption that had overtaken the earth. However, the decision to build the ark wasn't an easy one. It took Noah 120 years to complete the ark, during which time he endured ridicule, disbelief, and isolation from those around him. Yet he persevered because of his unwavering faith. Noah's obedience to God is a crucial part of this story. Unlike the rebellious angels who sought to defy God's will, Noah chose to align his life with divine purpose. This is why he was chosen to lead humanity's survival, while the Nephilim were doomed to destruction. The contrast between Noah and the Nephilim highlights the importance of faithfulness and obedience in a world overcome by sin. When the time came for Noah to enter the ark, God gave him very specific instructions. Genesis 6:19 states, "You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you." However, there was one group that was conspicuously absent from this divine plan: the Nephilim. The Nephilim were not just omitted from the ark, they were deliberately excluded. God had no intention of allowing these corrupt beings to survive the flood. Why? because their very existence was an affront to the natural order. Their presence on Earth was a result of rebellion, and they had played a key role in leading humanity into widespread wickedness. Allowing them onto the Ark would have meant preserving the evil that God sought to erase. This exclusion serves as a powerful metaphor. The Ark wasn't just a physical vessel. It was a symbol of divine grace and salvation. Only those who were aligned with God's will were allowed to enter, while the Nephilim, who represented rebellion and corruption, were left to perish. By excluding the Nephilim, God ensured that the new world would be free from the stain of their influence. Once Noah, his family, and the animals were safely inside the Ark, God sealed the door. This act symbolized the finality of God's judgment. The door was closed, and there was no turning back. As the floodwaters began to rise, everything outside the Ark, plants, animals, humans, and Nephilim, was consumed by the deluge. The flood wasn't just a natural disaster, it was a divine act of cleansing. The water washed away the sin and corruption that had overtaken the earth, making way for a fresh start. The Nephilim, despite their great strength and power, were no match for the forces of God. They were wiped from the face of the earth, along with the rebellious angels who had fathered them. The Bible describes the flood in stark terms. All the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of more than 15 cubits. Genesis 7:19-20. This total destruction was necessary to rid the world of the evil that the Nephilim had brought. But it wasn't just a story of death, it was also a story of renewal. By eradicating the Nephilim and their wickedness, God gave humanity a second chance, and while the Bible makes it clear that the flood was intended to wipe out the Nephilim, there are later references to giants in the Bible. For example, when the Israelites explored the Promised Land, they reported seeing giants whom they compared to the Nephilim. In Numbers 13:33, the spies sent by Moses said, "We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." So, did some Nephilim survive the flood, or were these giants merely descendants of another race? The answer is unclear. Some scholars believe that the giants mentioned after the flood were remnants of the Nephilim, who somehow survived or reappeared. Others argue that the term Nephilim was used symbolically to describe people of great size and strength. Regardless of whether or not the Nephilim physically survived the flood, their legacy endures. Their story serves as a warning of the consequences of defying divine order. They were beings of immense power, but their rebellion led to their ultimate destruction. Noah's Ark is one of the most iconic symbols in religious history. But beyond the physical aspects of the Ark, it represents something much deeper. It's a symbol of salvation, hope, and faith in the face of overwhelming adversity. The Ark was a refuge from the floodwaters, but it was also a sanctuary from the wickedness that had overtaken the world. The exclusion of the Nephilim from the Ark is equally symbolic. Their exclusion represents the idea that evil cannot be allowed to persist in the presence of divine grace. The Nephilim's destruction was necessary to ensure that the new world would be free from the corruption of the old. This story also serves as a reminder that no matter how powerful or influential one might be, rebellion against God's will ultimately leads to destruction. The Nephilim, despite their great strength, were powerless against the forces of divine judgment. The story of Noah's Ark is more than a tale of survival. It's a reminder of divine justice and the consequences of corruption. The Nephilim, with all their power and influence, were left behind, their fate sealed by their defiance and wickedness. Their exclusion from the Ark symbolizes the ultimate downfall of those who stray from righteousness. In contrast, Noah's faith and obedience highlight the virtues of integrity and trust in a higher power. This ancient story continues to resonate, reminding us that true strength lies not in might, but in living a life aligned with moral principles. What do you think about the fate of the Nephilim? Could their story hold deeper meanings for us today? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on our future explorations of ancient mysteries and biblical tales.